Welcome back to the Edge of the Hybrid, everyone. I'm your host, Swift Edge, and once again, we are back inside of the fantastic Goji Center channel with Indominus 3.0. This is titled, This is What Happens When You Challenge Goji Center. There has been brought to my attention a much going on hybrid war since Goji made Indominus 2.0, and with seeing that months ago there was an Indominus 3.0, my brain kind of goes, how would this thing be improved to be even more of a killing machine? Or a world destroyer, because Indominus 2.0 could very much cause an extinction level threat. So, hope you got your snacks, hope you got your drinks, because we're going to be checking this out. And after this, we're going to be watching another video from Goji Center, because we have a debate going on in my channel, and I hope that this video will settle it.
Here on Goji Center HQ, the team was minding our own business, cooking up some upcoming batches of nightmare fuel for a future episode, when this came up on our radar.
What the fudge is that?
Don't worry, if we hadn't noticed it, plenty of other people would have, and we're all too happy to let us know. Upon digging a little deeper to find out what all the commotion was about, a whole plethora of mentions, comments, and messages, we stumbled across a rather interesting creation. Meet Hank, a monstrous hybrid creation cooked up by the YouTuber Goji Guy and talented artist Valeria_LNX. Sporting a body covered in toxins, jaws of the dreaded Dunkleosteus, skin and eyes of a chameleon, the striking power of a pistol shrimp,
I'm loving the music for this, holy crap.
Of a tardigrade. A truly terrifying creature that was custom built to destroy our Indom 2.0.
I'm sorry, if you have to make a hybrid to destroy another hybrid, something tells me don't make that hybrid. But carry on.
This animal was conjured by the great minds of the research team of Goji Center, brought together with one goal: exterminate all life on Nublar. And it more or less had the potential to cause a global health crisis. This animal minding its own business was pitted against a new amalgamation. A hybrid battle that we never asked for, but got dragged into. So fine, after the challenge aimed our way, we have exactly what a lot of you wanted to see. A horrific beast with precisely calibrated abilities to make it as lethal as it could be to bring Hank down. Indominus 2.0 is hereby upgraded to nothing.
What?
No, seriously, we aren't changing anything. What you're looking at is Indom 2.0, but with different skins in Jurassic World Evolution.
Really?
Right? Nexus mods link below. Anyways, instead, she's stepping back into the analysis platform, and today we'll evaluate how our monstrous creature stands up against its new challenger, revealing a few tricks she had up her sleeve all along, and also lay bare a few critical weaknesses in its adversary. Making a hybrid doesn't mean automatically combining the best traits of both with no trade-offs. For every strength you add, you also add weaknesses. And because the dinosaurs and creatures in the Jurassic series are real animals, we can use real-life biology.
So I love how they point out, like, it's a cool-looking dino, however, you have flaws. And the fact that Goji is able to analyze that, I have a feeling the Indom 2.0, since it's not even been upgraded, is going to possibly take it down.
After all, the Indominus Rex's fantastic ability to change color isn't something out of fantasy, like Godzilla's atomic breath, but because it has similar skin to a cuttlefish that can do that in reality.
So sick.
For starters, let's take a look at what we understand to be Hank's composition. Base body frame of a modified Spinosaurus, combining other entire genome sets, such as that of the Indominus, Scorpius Rex, and an entire legion of animals, many from different classes. At least 20 species, and who knows what else is in there too.
That's a lot!
What Dr. Wu said to Maserani.
You cannot have an animal with exaggerated predator features without the corresponding behavioral traits.
A Therizinosaurus, Spino, and Pistol Shrimp might be used to fighting with their arms, but even more animals on the list didn't. T-Rex, Giga, Dinosuchus, and a bunch of wimpy-armed Abelisaurus. Hank's instincts on how to fight with its arms is going to be messed with. It would be every neural problem the Scorpius Rex had, but amplified. Some additives like the chameleon would actually hinder it.
There's too many things firing from its brain of just like chomp chomp, not using the actual claws it's got. That's a big flaw.
Hank movable eye stalks like the chameleon would mess with its binocular vision from T-Rex genes. And it would compromise its own camouflage from the cuttlefish. Turns out pop culture lied here. chameleons are not actually masters of disguise as you may think. A few types can change color to hide, but most of the time these lizards reactively change color to show emotion. Mix in the chaotic mind of the Scorpius on top of everything else, and Hank would be lighting itself up like a neon sign instead of using its camo like the Indominus could.
Indominus
This is precisely why the total number of species in the Indominus 2.0 genome was kept small. See for yourself. Base Indominus had at least 13 total confirmed contributors to its genome. Indom 2.0 only has 9 confirmed. Reducing the number of contributors in turn increases congruity, meaning each individual component works together and lessens split instincts. But is less actually more?
It's like a layered
We think
cake.
so.
It just works.
With a quadrupedal stance and lacking raptor-like feet or a sail, the 2.0 would be a lot more stable than the top-heavy and seemingly less balanced Hank. Based on their frames alone, if they get in a wrestling match, the Indom is less likely to go down first. To make this as fair as possible, we're going to ignore the fact that Indom 2.0 can reproduce clones of itself extremely fast via parthenogenesis, thanks to—
That's the thing. They would also take over Hank just by sheer number of volume. If they went by the parthenogenesis, they would just overwhelm, and numbers does a lot. But you also got to remember, the Indom 2.0 has heavy muscular arms. That thing is just gonna wrestle and do a flip, man. It's gonna frickin' RKO it.
the whiptail lizard, producing an army of these animals. So we'll keep this to a 1v1 discussion. But even with this, you'll find that it will be getting easier for the Indom. How? Let's compare their jaws.
I love the confidence.
Despite their tiny size, shrews use their jaws in a manner not that much different than Tyrannosaurus. With iron-reinforced teeth and a strong bite force, they chomp right through armored exoskeletons, tough scales, and mulch bone. Their method of biting down, where they crunch and thrash, works very well in conjunction with the T-Rex, who did almost the same thing. What about the Dunkleosteus-fueled bite of Hank? It all comes down to bite mechanics. Yes, Dunkleosteus has a very famous bite, but it is an attribute that the internet and pop culture have massively flubbed.
Really?
PSI, or pounds per square inch, is not a very reliable way to measure biting force unless you are very careful about what you're doing. This is why some reported biting forces from this armored fish are as low as 1,000 PSI to an obscenely huge 80,000. These mostly come from bad reporting and not actual research work. This is why scientists that study how animals use their jaws rely on other measurements, like newtons. This may come as a bummer for most of you, especially the creators of Hank, but scientific research on the infamous fish determined it had a jaw strength of only around 4,000 to 7,000 newtons. That might sound like a lot, but in reality, that's half the force of a great white shark. Instead of chomping down, the dunk was built more for having its mouth open quickly to suction feed on small prey and then bite down quickly to carve into more medium-sized game. The findings of one Dunkleosteus that was attacked by another also shows this shearing bite failed to penetrate the thick armor on the fish, meaning the full-body bony armor of the Indom 2.0, courtesy from the dwarf croc, would actually resist a lot of Hank's bite. But why not factor in the bite force of the other contributors in Hank's genome, like T-Rex? Surely that will pierce the Indom's hide, right? The bites of the Dunk and the Rex are the perfect example of why animals either bite down hard and crunch, or they can open their mouth wide and bite down exceptionally fast. Can't have both. Trying to put T-Rex force behind a Dunk jaw can result in the poor thing smashing its own face. Okay, but surely those overpowered arms wielded by Hank can punch Indom 2.0 into oblivion with hundreds of tons of force. Well, let's find out. One of Hank's killer apps to try to make it the killer of 2.0 was one of the most innocuous-looking creatures in the ocean. Pistol shrimp are an entire family of small crustaceans with a very specialized snapping mechanism in their arms.
Yeah, you don't
By cocking back one claw, they are able to force water into a chamber and then explosively convert the captured water into steam to make a bubble that snaps with an average of over 700 newtons of force. An impressive adaptation for both hunting small game and defending themselves, especially given that sound is much stronger underwater than it is in the air. Taking this mechanism and its striking power out of the water and applying this to a dinosaur will likely work against Hank. Doubling this mechanism in size doesn't double strength. Now Hank has to worry about moving the weight of its hands much faster. And add in that water is nearly 1,000 times denser than air, and any weapon that produces pressure waves is far less powerful in the air than in the water. So
So all that punching power is just negated. Because especially if you are fighting in the air and it's harder to move that, oh boy, that Hank is not winning. Hank's not taking a dub.
Up here, this snapping or punching will be outright impossible. And if it was, well, not to bore you with the math, but Hank's shrimp-fueled striking force would be around 16,145 newtons. Remember that the huge forces of the pistol shrimp are not about strength, but how the physics of water work. But let's throw water physics out of the window, and let's say that these hands strike with said hundreds of tons of force. Unless Hank's shoulders are made of vibranium, the blowback would shatter its own arms even if it missed. Dinosaur arms aren't meant to do these things at this scale, and honestly, you can't expect them to. Hank would disarm itself on day one upon using this striking force on practically anything, before it grows up large enough to fight the 2.0.
Yeah,
so far, we have an animal with a shattered face, broken forearms, self-inflicted by the way, and now it's the perfect time we bring up something Hank's creators may have forgotten about.
That's the messed up part. This dino's gonna take itself out. That's the thing. That is where Henry Wu is able to approach and give these hybrids various things, because he took so many attributes of creatures all together. That is where InGen knew so much about all these different animals that there's like, this will work, this won't, this will actually be beneficial, this will be more appealing, this is just going to be terrifying. Could you imagine displaying that creature and it's just destroying itself in front of an audience? That crowd's gonna be like, I want my money back. Indom can use tools.
Hank had some pretty tough animals in the genome, like the Giga, Indom, and Spino, but none of them are particularly armored nor really resistant to stabs, much less getting a sharpened metal pole shoved into them. Even if facing against the one-punch man of hybrids, the Indom 2.0's tool use, dexterity, and grappling would give her plenty of means to strike back, including at range. Recall that the Great Ape genome and hand augmentations allow the Indom to make use of these effectively and with purpose. But if we're going to stick solely on weapons that aren't laying around on the floor, another one of Hank's defense mechanisms comes into play.
This hybrid
In
war
nature,
is
one of the most
amazing.
common defenses and offenses are poison and venom. Hank comes into the fray with a modification to the oil-producing glands it has across its skin, producing a toxin that causes what is technically called intravascular coagulation. This can cause nasty blood clots if in big doses, and one snake, the Russell's Viper, even uses it as a chief component in its venom. The problem? Hank got handed the wrong poison for the wrong job. Remember these two? We didn't cover this in the Indominus 2.0's rampage across Isla Nublar, but we didn't forget about Dr. Wu's first hybrid. The Scorpius Rex would be rampant enough to pick a fight against the Indom 2.0, so we'd give our hybrid a hidden edge if it ever went up against another toxic opponent, and boy did it show up. It's a little-known fact, a favorite food of crocodilians just so happens to be snakes, including highly venomous vipers. Able to section off parts of their bloodstream to avoid circulating the toxins too far with strong antibodies, crocs can tank bite after bite from toxic prey with often little effect. And short-tailed shrews aren't just venomous in their own right, they shrug off most poisons. Their own venom can cause rapid blood coagulation and muscle locking worse than many snakes. They are immune to their own and similar toxic elements called glycoproteins. Add in a hyperactive metabolism that can break down blood clots and purge toxins very quickly, and it's a big pair of reasons why shrews are also known to hunt and kill snakes many times their size. So, in other words, Hank's main defense wouldn't do anything to the Indom 2.0. Blood clots just couldn't affect it enough.
Shot after shot,
especially
down.
since this was sold off as the peak survivability trait that would deter any future opposition against Hank, tardigrade traits in this case will cause huge drawbacks. Tardigrades are legendary for their ability to survive radiation, heat, and cold when in their dormant state. The key to this are the gel-like proteins that surround their cells called CAHS proteins. This gel can spare the cell from a lot of things, but it can't stop toxins that attack the connections between the cells. And coincidentally, this is exactly how the neurotoxin in the shrew venom works in addition to blood clotting. In fact, giving more proteins around the cells just gives more for the venom to work off of. And this is something that can't be averted. Get the tardigrade perks, if any, and you also take their weaknesses. After laying bare the critical weaknesses of Hank, it's now safe to say that without even changing a single thing to the 2.0's genome, or lifting a single finger, Indom 2.0 remains undefeated. Furthermore, Hank's overpowered jaw and hands disarmed itself before it could even step in the fighting ring.
That poor
He
creature.
did this to himself. However, to the merit of Hank's creators, this is a fantastic design as a monster. With just raw force or some tweaks, Hank could stand his ground against the 2.0 and actually have a good shot at winning. Its visible adaptability to swimming and being adept to most terrains, truly horrifying appearance, and malevolent nature is truly something that we at Goji HQ
beautiful.
appreciate
That's a
and would
beautiful
look forward
design.
to featuring on the channel again. But here on Goji Center, we are not cooking up 3.0 to counter it. 2.0 is lethal enough. For now, though, Indom 2.0 has other problems to worry about. Much bigger problems.
What the fuck? Is that the Ultimosaurus? That was incredible. The fact that by itself, it's still a viable threat. Once again, I've gotten told so many comments about the hybrid war going on, and I absolutely love it. I'm roped into it, and I'm very curious to see what could actually take down the Indominus 2.0. With that being said, because it was also mentioned in the video of the Spinosaurus, this has been a debate in my community for a little while now of could the Indominus take down the Spino, and Goji Center has actually made a video to answer that. Is there any dinosaur left that can beat the Spino? And I want to see if this is answered of what wins against the Spinosaurus.
With the official title release of the new Jurassic World film and rumors circling around about the return of the Spinosaurus, one question has come to mind.
I mean,
is there any
the rumor return? We already know it was a whole bunch of other Spinosaurus. If we got to see Asset 87 again, that would have been so sick.
one else that can actually stand up to this thing? All Jurassic films, in exception of The Lost World, follow the same paradigm when it comes to dinosaur showdowns. In the original Jurassic Park, we see Rexy featured in a squash match against two velociraptors. Jurassic Park 3 with the Rex assassin Spinosaurus killing off the T-Rex. Jurassic World with a showdown between the Indom and Rexy. Fallen Kingdom with the Indoraptor versus Blue. And Dominion showcasing the rather tragic death of the Giganotosaurus against Rexy with backup.
It went down so quickly.
In this new upcoming film, and assuming that the Spino will indeed return, is there any land predator that can actually take on this thing? To set things clear before we move on, while watching this, keep in mind that this episode is not intended to make predictions on what will happen in the next movie, but rather to kind of set the stage and answer certain questions. That being, which of the large predatory dinosaurs that are still alive in this cinematic universe is still able or is in enough shape to defeat the Spinosaurus? In this episode, we'll also assume that this Spino, the one we saw from Camp Cretaceous, is the same one from Jurassic Park 3. There is the matter of this same Spinosaurus being depicted as deceased in the game Jurassic World Evolution 2. The cause of death, getting jumped by a bunch of raptors.
Really?
However, this could have been an alternative timeline, since it was confirmed that the Spino from Camp Cretaceous was the same Spino from Isla Sorna. And it was confirmed that the Spino from Camp Cretaceous was the same.
It definitely looks like it's a lot bigger than it was in Jurassic Park 3. Like, the size of it, woo! You know what? Freaking animal I have become indeed.
Spino from Isla Sorna. And also the fact that in this game you can hear the phone ring inside Spino's stomach, when in the movie, the Spino had already shitted it out. So, for this episode, we'll just pretend at least that this guy is still in fact alive. The synopsis of the new Jurassic World movie reads that 5 years after the events of Jurassic World Dominion, the planet's ecology has proven inhospitable for dinosaurs, and the remaining ones exist in isolated equatorial environments resembling the one in which they once thrived. Here's where it gets interesting. The three most colossal creatures within that tropical biosphere hold the key to a drug that will bring miraculous life savings benefits to humankind. It is said that these three are the largest amongst land, sea, and air. The last and largest land predator in this cinematic universe being the Spinosaurus, measuring at around 54.8 feet in length, perhaps more, making it almost a whole 5 feet longer than the Giganotosaurus from Jurassic World Dominion. To lay this simply, to better answer the question, here are all the large theropods that have appeared, starting with Rexy, Buck and Doe from Jurassic Park The Lost World, the Spino itself from Jurassic Park 3, who is now much bigger, the Indominus Rex, and Giganotosaurus.
The only thing is, again, apologize for pausing a lot. The Indom was reported as saying, like, it wasn't even fully grown yet. It was still technically in a junior-like state, that it had the potential to be fully grown, and that is terrifying.
Also add Big Edie and Little Edie from Camp Cretaceous as well. So, which of these are still alive? Big Edie and Little Edie are still alive in the Camp Cretaceous timeline. The Giga, unfortunately, is dead. The Indominus' skeleton is sitting in the bottom of the lagoon in Nublar, and at this point in time, there are currently big question marks as to the current status of the Buck, Doe, and Rexy, the oldest out of this batch. Because this film takes place 5 whole years after the events of Jurassic World Dominion, saying that these two and Rexy are still alive is kind of pushing it. T-Rex during the Cretaceous would have lived anywhere between 28 to 30 years of age, with exceptionally healthy T-Rexes being able to live a little bit more. Sue, for instance, was likely past her 30s, some ailments such as minor arthritis or some sort of infection. If Rexy was still alive at this point, she and the Buck and Doe would have been crossing more than 35 years of age, which is too old for a T-Rex. And if they are still alive, they would be nowhere near good conditions to take on another large theropod without incurring fatal injury.
Probably
T-Rex
not.
just so happens to be an example of a type of dinosaur that grows fast, but burns out rather quickly. But what about the Spinosaurus? Is this guy too old as well? There isn't much data on Spinosaurids, specifically on lifespan. Despite this, we can draw a conclusion based on how old carnosaurs are in relation to their size. Holotypes such as that of Meraxes and an especially old Giganotosaurus show evidence that some of these guys could live up to half a century. The bigger the carnosaur, the longer the lifespan. Meaning that there is a good chance that Spinosaurus could have lived long lifespans as well. And in the Jurassic franchise, we may be looking at a Spinosaur who may not be in his prime, but is also not too old to be absolutely useless in combat. And given that this guy is still the largest theropod dinosaur in the franchise, it will take something special to take down the spined reptile. If this one kept picking his fights carefully and did not incur any catastrophic injuries throughout its life, this fella may be able to still live for quite some time. Now that we know that the larger carnosaurs would tend to live longer, consider that this Giganotosaurus would have actually been around less than 5 years of age during its appearance in Jurassic World Dominion. Had it not been killed in this film, this dude would have dominated Biosyn Valley for another 45 plus years.
Could you imagine having to be carefully walking through that valley for 45 freaking years because that thing could still be alive if it didn't get taken out? Holy crap. Imagine just trying to go for a trek in the woods, you go for a hike, and all of a sudden you just turn your corner and you'll be like, there's my death.
Similarly, if we assume that Spino could have lived remotely close to this, he would still have a good 10 solid years under his belt before he starts to feel the effects of old age. So, is there really anyone strong enough to stand a chance here? We have a couple of options. The T-Rex duo seen in Camp Cretaceous, Big Edie and Little Edie, may actually stand a chance. Now, these aren't just any T-Rexes. If you remember, these two would have been held in an artificial environment where they would be observed, taken care of, so that they can fight repeatedly against other dinosaurs. Forced to fight against her will and surviving repeated encounters against other dinosaurs, the young one in particular may grow up to be a hard challenge for an adult Spinosaurus. Her mother, Big Edie, wasn't necessarily a small specimen either, reaching lengths that rivaled Rexy, meaning her offspring, if she lived a healthy life, could have been just as large as Rexy herself in her prime. But these aren't the only T-Rexes still around. In Jurassic Park: The Lost World, we were introduced to a young T-Rex known as Junior. This guy at this point in time would be a full-grown adult, admittedly reaching his later years. We'll get to where this animal might be in a little bit, but we must first speculate on whether or not this guy is in proper shape to take on a Spinosaurus. Assuming that he was born in the year 1996 or 1997, and that Jurassic World Rebirth takes place in the year 2027, this fellow would be approximately 30 years of age. Meaning that even if this guy took good care of himself, he is no longer in his prime. Not to mention that his parents were not the largest Rexes seen in the franchise, with both being slightly shorter than Nublar's Rexy. So, would Junior be a better pick than Little Edie? Probably not, and there's also the matter of Junior's whereabouts. Some speculations have it that if this guy is still alive, he may be currently in the Biosyn Sanctuary. However, given the movie's synopsis, we are informed that any dinosaurs that are still alive would be located near the equatorial belt, the more tropical regions and coincidentally right where Cinco Muertes are at. In this particular location, the only land predators that would actually pose a threat to this now adult Spino would be any T-Rexes that live on Isla Sorna, if there are any left. The last whereabouts of a Spinosaurus in this series was in Manticorp Island, a place located east of Nublar, closer to the Costa Rican mainland. Given that Spinosaurus is an aquatic dinosaur, it's really not too far-fetched for a very motivated Spino to make his way back to his home turf on Isla Sorna, as long as he avoids running into an especially hungry Mosasaurus, or somehow transported back to this island. This way, Spinosaurus would be living amongst the creatures that may pose a threat once again. So, besides a T-Rex, is there anything else that can stand up to this Spinosaurus? Well, here's the thing. It's already established in the lore that there are several labs around the world cooking up new species, some of which haven't been introduced yet, such as other big theropods like Carcharodontosaurus or Maposaurus, two other large carnivores that with a few genetic tweaks may still pose a considerable threat for Spinosaurus. Not to mention the possibility of introducing other big dromaeosaurs such as Utahraptor. Besides this, however, there's really nothing on land besides any still living healthy T-Rex that can take on the Spino. Something new needs to be cooked up in a lab somewhere. Perhaps the said sinister, shocking discovery that has been hidden for decades could be it. But does it always have to be this way? For once, this animal may be an example of a villain that was never killed off. An animal that found his way back home and lived out the rest of his days without having to get pitted against another big carnivore.
So that just means, like, it so far is going to survive, meaning we don't know fully what could take it down. Although the Mosasaurus in the water might give it the biggest threat. That being said, all in the air of the Spino stands a very good chance to get against anything and everything that exists within Jurassic World and Jurassic Park. And it just makes me want to see more come out of this franchise to show off more of the dinosaurs that we haven't gotten to see yet. But I guess we'll have to wait until the future. But this has been some fantastic videos from Goji Center. If you want to check out their channel, which I highly recommend you should, because it's just filled to the brim with beautiful dinos. Link in the description below to go and check them out. If you enjoyed this as much as I did, make sure to smash that like button, leave a comment down below, let me know what you thought about these videos, and if you'd like to see me react to anything else in the future, give me some suggestions right down below. I take them all into consideration. And if you're new around here and you've been enjoying to seeing, why not click that subscribe button, click that bell to get notified of my next video. I will see you all in the next one.
Bye-bye!
We'll be right back.